Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. We are happy you are here with us today and that you are here to join us for our conversation with one of my all-time favorite bloggers, one of the people I've been most privileged to meet and work with since I moved here to Florida, Bess Auer, the founder of Florida Blogging Conference and of GottaGetBlogging.com. As always, I am here with my co-hosts, Robert Ryan and Thomas Hanna, and I'll give them both a chance to say hello before we dive in and let Bess tell us all about herself. Thomas, how are you doing over there?
I am doing fantastic. I am glad to be here. I feel like, and maybe it's just because, you know, December and tends to be a month that goes flying by, I feel like I have been missing you guys and haven't seen you lately. So I am excited about being back here and reconnecting with the crew here and the incredible group of folks that interact with us in the audience that make this such a wonderful experience. So I'm looking forward. I am particularly looking forward to this conversation today with Bess Auer. But I'll hand it over and let our foreign ambassador introduce himself as well.
Me holding down the fort here in Europe. Hi everybody, this is my name is Rob from robertryan.ie. As Thomas said, I'm the European contingent of the Blogging Warfare team. I'm based in Madrid at the moment in Spain, and like Thomas, I'm also quite happy to be here to be able to talk to Bess and find out how she's been able to establish such a foothold in the blogging community, particularly in Florida, but not only that, because me here, all the way out in Europe, I've even heard about what Bess has been doing. She's also, from my research I've seen, she's been able to get an Olympian to do stuff for her. So anybody who has that sort of power of persuasion and blogging skills is well worth listening to. So throwing it back.
Yes, and it really is going to be a fun conversation today. Bess has been a blogger herself for quite some time, and she's got a lot of knowledge and experience to share with us. But I know she's brand new to most of you here on Google+. So, Bess, let's just start it out with a real simple but complicated question, and tell us all about yourself.
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me on. I'm honored to be on here. I'm excited to, you know, as Carolyn, you know, that Google is kind of not in my web tool belt, so I'm excited to be adding it. So you have actually helped me embrace Google+, so I appreciate it. But for blogging, so I got my start back in 2009, so not quite as long as some people. Some people have far more experience than I do, but I really jumped in with both feet. So I was a school teacher. I taught English, 6th grade English, for almost 20 years, and I love writing, so I started a blog on the side, the Central Florida Top 5. And that was a hyper-local focus, and I was blogging for about 6 months before it occurred to me that I needed to get out and meet some people. You know, in my mind, blogging was just behind your computer, putting out content, and it soon occurred to me that blogging is not putting out content, blogging is creating relationships. So I called up a few bloggers in the area in Orlando and said, hey, I love your stuff, I'd love to meet, I'd love to pick your brain. And so that kind of started my getting together with bloggers. And then it occurred to me, wow, I'd really like to go to a blogging conference. The only blogging conferences at those times were the huge ones that cost several $100s to go to, were always in New York or San Francisco or someplace that I couldn't take time off from school to go to. So I put together one called the Florida Blogger Conference. We had it actually in my school gym where I was teaching at the time, this little elementary school gym, and I went around to those same bloggers and said, hey, I love what you do. Do you mind sharing, you know, how you do it? And they said yes. So the FL BlogCon, the Florida Blogger and Social Media Conference, was born and has grown from there into one of the largest in the Southeast. So I've been very blessed that I have lots of smart people, Carolyn, you presented this year, that are willing to share their information, their knowledge. So I love that idea of creating this community where people learn from each other and willingly share with each other. So and I actively blog at Florida Swim Network, which is we live stream competitive swim meets. In fact, that's where I'm in Clearwater right now to live stream the Jingle Bell meet for the Clearwater aquatic team. So we've got some Olympians in the pool here. I'll be there tonight live streaming that. So anyway, that's my life.
In a nutshell. But one thing that I found interesting was in my expansive research, one thing that I thought was interesting was the rate of growth that you had with Florida BlogCon, because over the course of a few years, you took it from, it was about 100 people to, over 1,000 people or so, I think. So one of the things I was wondering, what were the main kind of teething problems you had in the early stages, and then how did you get about, how did you overcome them so that you could actually make this conference, expand and become the platform for other things?
Well, so when I first started out, we thought we'd be lucky if we got 50 people to come. We could accommodate 100, and that's what we ended up with. So I underestimated the demand for a conference, and I think we hit it right with the time period. So most bloggers, as we all know, have a day job. Most bloggers do not blog full time. Most bloggers are teachers, lawyers, students, a whole wide variety of occupations. And so by having on a Saturday for that one day, that really, I think, kind of was the right formula for us. So when I realized that we had this great formula moving forward to grow bigger, because we did have a demand, my challenges were to find a venue that we could afford. I didn't want to go necessarily to a hotel because that's what all the other conferences do. We wanted to be someplace that showcased something in Orlando, so we went to the Orlando Science Center. And then now we're at Full Sail University, which is this really unique place in Orlando. But I couldn't do it by myself, so I sat about recruiting some dedicated bloggers that eventually became my planning team. And so they were kind of my sounding board. And so I have Katie Widrick from katiewidrick.com, Jeanette Scott from Jay's Everyday Fashion. We have Ben Reed from originally Adventures with Ben and now Orlando Waterhole, Josh Murdoch from Professor Josh, and then Brian Wilson who eventually took over the Central Florida Top 5 for me. And those were kind of my group that were so willing to dedicate their time. I mean, they helped spread word about, they helped find a venue, they helped plan what we were going to do. We do a call for speakers, and we get like 80 different proposals to speak, and we can't do that in one day, so they really kind of help vet what would people most be interested in. So I don't attribute the growth at all to me. I attribute it to the team and their dedication. So really surrounding yourself with people that really believe in the same vision you do, I think, is key to accomplishing anything.
Well, so we got to all find a team who are willing to give us some of their time.
Yes.
Simple, simple.
That's the truth, and I think the fact that your call for speakers keeps growing too is reflective of the fact that people come to the conferences and then they feel like not only like they learn something from it, but like they have something valuable to share as well. I think it helps build confidence in bloggers to look at someone else who's been blogging for maybe exactly the same amount of time they have, maybe less, and see, I can step up my game through this, and maybe I have this track to offer. So it's become a real community of learners, hasn't it?
Well, it really has. And the nice thing, so we get, as I said, around 80 for the last conference, and a lot of them were professional speakers that wanted to just find a place to speak. And so those were very easy to push aside. We were looking for truly the bloggers that are blogging day in and day out. Maybe they're busy moms that have somehow found out how to, balance their schedule with blogging. So we want kind of the real bloggers instead of the professional speakers. But again, that's a challenge because somebody who pays to come for your conference is expecting a polished speaker, and so that's sometimes hard to do if it's a blogger's first time speaking. They may have great information to offer, may not be quite so polished on the speaker side. So that's always our challenge, to kind of balance both of them.
And you know what I love, Bess, and you've touched on this a couple of times, particularly right at the very beginning, is the way that you emphasize the relationships that you build in blogging. And I think particularly because it's such a digital medium, newer bloggers come in with this expectation that you're building sort of an outlet to just push ideas for other people to consume. And you have built everything that you've done, online and offline, around the connections that you build with people. So here's a question that I have for you, because I know that you've transitioned in your online world and your offline world and integrated a lot of that. How important do you think it is for people that do make connections online and begin building relationships online to look also for opportunities to make offline connections with people in the blogging world?
Yeah, I think that, oh my gosh, it's huge. So one of my golden rules is to never judge somebody by their online numbers. You know, I mean, it's a true statement, but I think far too often people will write somebody off because they don't have, you know, thousands of followers on Twitter. So a great case in point. So we do a web show called Blog Talk TV. It was a monthly show. And one of my offline connections, I'm just friends with him on Facebook. He happens to be a TV producer in Virginia. He loved the show. He's like, I want to put you on TV. And so, you know, if I had ignored him because he did not have huge social media numbers, it would have done nothing. But instead, the fact that I built a relationship with him, didn't realize really what he did in how big he was in Virginia, and now he's had the power to be able to allow us to be able to show in, you know, I think 1.5 million households now in Virginia. So
Wow.
It was a great case of do not judge somebody based on their online numbers. You know, we do a lot of tweet ups, which we actually haven't had one in a while, so we need to get back to planning that. So the tweet ups, and for the viewers that aren't aware of tweet ups, it's where you get together with people that you would normally tweet with. You all assemble at a restaurant or someplace like that, and you know, you tweet to promote the restaurant where you're at, but also you're interacting and meeting new people. And that's one of my favorite things to do, because you meet new people that maybe otherwise you would not have noticed on Twitter for whatever reason, but yet now you put a face with it, and now you have a connection with them. So if any of you have an opportunity to go to them, and if you don't have an opportunity, organize one. Give other people the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
They're a lot of fun. They're a great way to put a spotlight on a local business too. I love the one that you organized with Hype Orlando for Florida BlogCon this year. That was a blast.
Was that the one?
Definitely vote in for more.
The winery?
Yeah, the Quantum Leap. Yeah, the winery.
Yeah, which I'd never been to. That was cool. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
I think you raise it, just
awesome.
to jump in there though, because I think you raise an interesting thing in the last point you made with regards to what I just wrote down here. It's the kind of the numbers bubble that a lot of us tend to be in, because we're online so often, we're doing this day in, day out, that we don't kind of factor in that people who may be really, really influential offline and who may be able to open up a lot of doors for us, we don't pay any heed to them because they don't have any numbers. But again, for them, it's not something that they even consider. It's not important to them because they're too busy doing what they're very good at offline.
Right. Yeah, so another example would be like Bob Longo, who's the director at West Channel 2 here locally. He tweets like maybe once every 6 months, and he's one that would be very easy to ignore otherwise, but yet has all sorts of influence offline. So really encourage, you know, your viewers to make sure that they are not judging. I see so many, you know, gurus that, you know, really kind of tout their numbers in this way that really doesn't make any sense, especially in a day where, you know, clout with the K really doesn't mean that much. You know, so to me it's much more important to have those personal connections than just be spouting numbers all the time.
My favorites are the ones that have that talk about their numbers, and you go to their profile and they have like 50,000 followers and no engagement in there.
Yeah,
in their stream, like at all.
Well,
those ones I enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually one of the things that so I encourage bloggers, especially if they're not that savvy with Twitter or they don't really get Twitter, to make it more relevant to themselves. I tell them to develop what I call a personal follow policy. So define who you want to interact with. So for me, generally I look for people that live in Florida, and so I always like a location base on their Twitter profile. I want people that engage, so I will go look at their timeline, and if they have not responded or retweeted or replied or had any sort of conversation, I'm probably not going to follow them at all, no matter what their numbers say, simply for that very reason. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's hard to build relationships with people that don't respond to any attempts to make connections with them, and And I really resonate with what you talk about in terms of blogging really being a networking industry. It doesn't appear that way at first, but as you get to figure out what you're really doing in the blogging world, you realize that the crucible of success is really in your ability to network with other people, in your other colleagues, and build relationships with the people that are interested in what you're doing. And it really becomes all about engagement and that interaction.
Yeah, well, so stepping aside to our other blog, Florida Swim Network, that's a perfect example of it's all relationship based. So we started that. My husband's a swim coach. My son's a swimmer. I was by the pool all the time anyway, so I thought, well, I might as well do something with it. So the first time we live stream a meet, it was hilarious. So we had not the laptop camera here, but this little eyeball that people use for. It's not made for sports at all. It's made for just doing vlogging or webcasts like this. And so we were at a meet, and Ryan Lochte was going to be swimming in it, which he used to compete here in Florida all the time. So I'm like, hey, Joe, wouldn't it be cool if I live streamed that? I bet we get some viewers. So we I just set it up in Ustream. I didn't have a name for it or anything. And we started live streaming. I was using this little eyeball that was going back and forth. It was the worst quality you've ever seen. It was horrible. But on deck, swimmers saw us doing it. They're like, what are they doing? Oh, they're live streaming it. So they started calling up their parents, their grandparents. We had people up in Ireland tuning in, of all places. We had grandparents in Ireland that first time tuning in to watch the swim meet. And we had such a huge viewership that I'm like, ooh, we're onto something here. And so actually one of my favorite things about Florida Swim Network is that it is just totally a way to connect swimmers, especially since Florida is such a transient state. So we have swimmers here whose grandparents are in Russia. We have swimmers here that a lot of family in the Caribbean that tune in to watch their kids swim. And we run a live chat room during it, and so they'll be saying, can you give a shout out to my grandson Johnny? I haven't seen him this year, or things like that. So to me, it's totally relationship built, and it's really been a formula of success for Florida Swim Network for us.
Awesome.
You can even say it's all about building communities, which kind of dovetails into what we're talking about here. And I happened to see one of the shows or talks that you gave a little bit a while back, and you were talking about kind of key things that you think people should do to try foster and create a community. So for the benefit of our ever-expanding global audience, what would you say are the key things that you'd focus on?
Key things or key tools? Which would you prefer?
I'll take a little bit out of column A and a little out of column B, please.
Okay, so for building community, at least for us, you have to know what your audience is tuning in for, obviously. And to me, the tools that you present, that you use, allow you to do that. So Florida Swim Network, a great case in point. We started off on Facebook. We're still on Facebook, but we discovered that none of our competitive swimmers are still on Facebook. They've all left. So we've had to go elsewhere to where they are. And so it's been a combination of us, finding out where they are, what type of content they want. Perfect. Great right there. I'm reading a quote. What is that from?
Yeah. Yes, Kristen's got a wonderful comment.
That's Kristen Drysdale. I'll bring it up. I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but she wrote, and I think this really tied into exactly what you're saying, says we really devalue our own sensibilities when we look at numbers over relevancy. The perfect networking partner for me may be waiting out there buried in the pile of numbers. Thank goodness for all the tools we have to seek people of similar interests, and I think that's really pretty dead on.
No, absolutely.
Kristen's great at building relationships. She like rocks that.
Yeah, no, I love that, and the fact that
you should meet
tools.
On her Bess.
What?
Oh yeah. I said she's definitely someone you should meet on here. You two would get along great. She's wonderful.
Oh, gosh, I love
So Bess, you really are kind of becoming a master of building communities that link both online and offline. And your latest attempt into, I should say not attempt, but your latest venture into the online communities is gottagetblogging.com. Do you want to speak a little bit to what you've been going through with creating that and building the community there?
Sure. So Florida BlogCon is once a year. We do smaller conferences throughout the year, but really we had people asking, for something, a resource year-round. And I recently started offering open office hours. So every Saturday morning, well, not today when I'm out of town, but when I'm in town, I offer open office hours. So I set up shop at downtown Credo, which is this great little place in Orlando. And for a few hours, anybody can come in, sit down, talk with me face-to-face if they want to learn how to blog, if they want advice on whatever, blogging or social media, and I'll be happy to do that. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could replicate this? And, because people are saying, oh, I want to learn how to blog. Can you teach me how to blog? And so by creating Gotta Get Blogging, where they can join, and just for a few bucks a month, they can learn everything about blogging. They can connect with other like bloggers, and so that was the idea behind it, to give me a resource to point them to learn how to blog, simply because my time is limited. I wish I could do open office hours all the time, because I really enjoy what I get back from that, just the friendships that I've created, the new people I meet, but Gotta Get Blogging has been that solution for me.
And you have some great people that I've seen plugging into that. I know just from even within the community of people that know here, I know Carolyn and Greg are both members there that are helping to teach people at Google+.
Yep.
Dennis Litley, I think I saw him in the audience earlier. He's active on there teaching about Hangouts and helping people do that. And so you've got, I know I've just seen the quality of people that you have plugged in there helping to teach are just off the chart, and people that are normally you probably pay a lot more to have accessibility to one-on-one way, as opposed to what they get on Gotta Get Blogging, where you have all of them that you can drop messages to and get direct feedback from.
Yeah, in a perfect world, it'd all be free for everything. But what I loved, especially when I started doing the open office hours, Dennis Litley, Chef Dennis of all people, said, I like that. I think I want to offer that here too. So in his area of the world, he has started offering open office hours, and just the ability to be able to sit down and talk with him and pick his brain for a few hours. I mean, that's priceless. You're absolutely right. And then we've had so Carolyn.
Oh, yeah. It's real.
And Greg did some great how-to videos for Google+. I had a mom blogger that does all sorts of sponsored posts, Christy Cronin of Saving Said Sibling. She's like, so I think I'd like to share with people how I get sponsored posts. And I'm like, great. So I think that's one of the things that I love, that we've created this community where people willingly share what they know. So that's really important to do.
What would you find for signups? Is it coming primarily from Florida, or is it spreading out now?
What? Sorry,
for signups and users to the site, is it primarily coming from signups coming from Florida? Or are you getting them from all over the world yet, or how's that working out?
Well, primarily from Florida right now, simply because that's where my network is. But we are getting some signups from California, of all places, and we've actually, since we're now airing in Virginia, had a few come in from Virginia. And so it's growing, and we're pleased with the growth of it. We're actually going through a site redesign right now, just to make it a little more intuitive for the, especially for the newer bloggers that may not be quite so technically savvy. So I expect it to continue to grow, especially as our web show, Blog Talk TV, continues to air in different places. Yeah.
So as we get down to the last few minutes here of our show together today, Bess, what would you say are some of the top lessons that people have taken away from BlogCon and from Gotta Get Blogging, or any of your other blogger connection adventures? What would you say people are taking away and benefiting from?
So I think the absolute top lesson that people walk away, at least from FL BlogCon, is that they are much more in control of their lives than perhaps they thought they were. So I use a lady named Deborah Boyd, as a great example. So she came to this second year of BlogCon. And I did not meet her, though, until the third year. I was walking around introducing myself to some of the attendees, and Deborah grabbed me and hugged me. And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know you." I'm not a huggy person. But she was so sincere. She is, I think, 63 years old now. She retired. She had been a cruise line director, did not have enough money to make ends meet. So she either had to go back to work or figure out something to do. And so she started blogging. She came to FL BlogCon, found out different ways she could monetize her blog, and she said that made all the difference in the world to her because she saw, wow, I can actually do this. So she became empowered to kind of create the life that she wanted, even at 62 years old. And when she shared that story with me, I was like, oh my gosh, this really is making a difference in other people's lives. And it just kind of reinforced that I was doing this for the right reasons. So empowerment, I think, is the first thing people take away, that inspiration they get when seeing other people, you know, having success with what they want to do. And then the second thing is the relationships that I think, you know, I'll read on blogger recaps where people are like, oh, I got to meet so-and-so for the first time, or, oh, I got to reunite with so-and-so. I hadn't seen them since the last blogging conference. And so I see them, like, there's a group of bloggers here in Tampa Bay that are a perfect example. They all met at FL BlogCon, and now they get together once a month and continue that relationship and continue the sharing and the building of community. So I think those two things are probably the most important beyond any technical know-how they learn.
And let me ask a follow-up question.
Which they certainly do take
to that one that was just brought up. I would like to know, Bess, since you have accomplished just incredible things as a blogger, if you could give one piece of advice to a brand new blogger, someone that's just starting off, just getting out of the gate, trying to figure all this thing out, if you could give one piece of advice, what would your number one piece of advice be?
To call up another blogger that you like and ask to take him to coffee.
That's a great piece of advice.
That was the changing point for me. You know, when I first started Central Florida Top 5, as I said, it was about 6 months before it even occurred to me to meet with another blogger, and that just kind of opened up the whole world for me. I learned from them. When I had questions, I could ask them. They were sharing their struggles with me, and we kind of brainstormed how to overcome them. And so, yeah, definitely find a blogger that you admire, one that you like their writing, preferably one that lives close to you. And but with, you know, Google Hangouts, it doesn't necessarily need to be that way. But you know, ask them out to coffee, and 9 times out of 10 they'll probably say yes. They'll be flattered that you asked, and you got a new friendship there. And
you never go wrong with coffee.
I actually drink tea.
Tea drinker, coffee drinker, it really doesn't matter. Yes. You don't have the photographer mug today, though, Thomas.
I don't. I'm back to my one mug to rule them all.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Well, this is from.
I like that one.
Yeah, this is from Animal Kingdom there in Orlando. So there you go. So you are close enough once you return to Orlando that you can acquire one for yourself, Bess, to drink out of.
If only I were a theme park blogger, I would.
There you go.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, there's certainly plenty of those here. Maybe we'll have to do a show on theme park blogging someday.
Oh my gosh, you guys totally.
That could be interesting. That'd be different.
Yeah. Whenever we have, whenever we have blogger meetups, the theme park bloggers take over everything. So there are plenty of them.
Yeah, you had I saw at the Florida Blogging Conference, you had a whole section that was like theme park blogging on there. Yes, there were many of them. I did notice that. But I'll hand it on back to you, Carolyn, and you can, as we reach the end here, you can go ahead and close us out.
Yes, it's been such a fun conversation today, and so much fun as always to talk to Bess. I have to admit, I have definitely been a personal beneficiary of the efforts that she's made here. Not only as a speaker at BlogCon, and I do a show for Gotta Get Blogging, and it's, you know, but much more than that, it's enabled what the work that Bess has done has enabled me to connect much more deeply with people here in the community and make a whole bunch of new friends. I met Thomas through Google+, but then met him in person at Florida Blog Con. I met Biggie, who runs Sandwich Eat-Ups that I now go to every month. I met Jen Vargas through Florida Blog Con, who's a wonderful tech blogger in the area. And I could go on and on and on. But I think, Bess, you definitely have your heart in the right place, and that has allowed you to lead Central Florida's bloggers to be much more connected. And I'm personally very grateful to you for that and for coming on today to share your experiences with us. Rob, any wrap-up notes?
Yeah, well, it just happens, I'm just reading a comment here from Kristen Drysdale, and she happens to encapsulate everything that I wanted to say. It's awesome, love that advice, totally original. And that's kind of one of the things that struck me just from listening to you throughout the show, Bess, is that you're kind of taking your approach is kind of different to, I suppose, those of us who kind of inhabit the numbers bubble sometimes, you know. And I particularly liked your closing gambit and piece of advice as far as that, you know, if people, what they should do, the number one tip is ask a blogger who's kind of influential or knows what they're doing to go for a coffee with you, because I think sometimes we do get a little bit too distant from each other, even though we can talk to each other quite comfortably over Google+. There is no, you know, it doesn't compare to actually eyeballing someone one-to-one over coffee. So, yeah, like Kristen said, a very interesting take on it, and it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very much.
Thomas?
Yeah. Well, I like I said at the very beginning, I have been looking forward to connecting with you for a while, Bess. So I was super excited to have you on the show, and I love the emphasis you make. One of the things that I preach all the time is, like drive into the ground, is to stop broadcasting and start connecting with people. And that seems to be the central heart of your message as well. So I really appreciate you coming on to the show. And where can we connect up with you at? We've got Gotta Get Blogging. Where else can we find you at, Bess?
So you can always find me on Twitter. I'm Bess_Auer. That's probably the fastest way to find me. You can also find me at floridaswimnetwork.com. I'm there daily, so either of those places. And I've just actually started a new blog called the Publicity Blog, which is kind of an experiment based on Jason Sadler's I Wear Your Shirt model, so we'll see how that goes. So anyway, any of those places, and I really want to thank you guys for having me on again. This show is such a great concept and such a good resource, not only for bloggers, but I think anybody involved in social media. So thanks, you guys.
Thank you, Bess.
Thank you, Bess, and we're all very, very happy to have spent time talking to you. Hopefully we can invite you back again sometime in the future. Maybe get some more of the Florida blogging community on here as well. And for now, I wish everybody a good rest of your day. Look forward to talking to you all on social media in the future, and have a good one.